Time for focus. Now, as we've been reporting, the situation in Ukraine continues to be volatile, with shootings breaking that Easter truce. Preparing for the worst, the US Army has been increasing joint military exercises with Romania. There are 4 American military bases in the country, and the US has started installing a controversial anti-ballistic missile shield. Our reporters, Mira Bran and Thomas Waterhouse, bring you to the heart of the increasingly strategic zone.
Equipped with the latest in anti-missile technology, the USS Donald Cook would be a formidable foe for any adversary. Since April the 10th, the destroyer has been patrolling Romanian territorial waters in the Black Sea. Joint exercises between US and Romanian forces have increased in recent weeks as Russia ramps up the pressure on neighbouring Ukraine.
USS Donald Cook, I think, demonstrates a clear commitment by the United States to be present here in the Black Sea, operating alongside our NATO allies.
It's been more than 10 years now since Bucharest first became a strategic ally of Washington. Joining NATO under President Traian Băsescu in 2004, Romania is still ruled by the same man, who's never hidden his pro-American sympathies.
We are together in difficult moments. Respectul nostru pentru reacția.
We're truly very grateful towards our NATO allies who have reinforced their military presence in the Black Sea following Russia's annexation of Crimea.
După anexarea Crimeei de către Federația Rusă.
The centre of this cooperation is the Mihail Kogalniceanu Air Base, home to 10,000 people on the edge of the Black Sea. The base has been let out to the US since 2001, but Romanian servicemen are also trained here by their American counterparts. There are 3 other US bases in the country, at Babadag in eastern Romania, at Fătăști in the southeast, and at Deveselu in Romania's southwest. It's in the small village of Deveselu that the Americans have started installing their key armament system in Romania, an anti-ballistic missile shield. That's been one of the major sources of tension between Russia and the US, and events in Ukraine have focused attention on it. A few days ago, Romania's president called for NATO to accelerate the deployment of the missile shield and to build up their forces in his country. His aim is to stop Ukraine's instability from spreading.
I can't close my eyes to the instability being generated by the Russian Federation. We have a serious problem because it's Moscow that has its finger on the button, which could stop all of these frozen conflicts.
Băsescu's firmness on the matter is influenced by the fact that, like Ukraine, his country has a territorial rivalry with Russia. The country of Moldova is situated between Romania and Ukraine. Its western part is fast integrating with Romania and the EU, but its Russian-speaking east, called Transnistria, is more closely aligned with Moscow. In May, Moldova plans to sign a free trade and association agreement with the EU, something Russia won't be keen to see.
We share a border with Ukraine, so the moment we Moldovans get improved relations with Europe, the effect on our Ukrainian neighbours will be big.
As a former communist bloc country, many Russians feel Romania is a central territory in their sphere of influence. But more and more Romanians don't see things that way, with a younger generation looking west to the EU and the United States. For them, the US Army stands as a guarantor of their freedom.
Now, for more on this, I'm joined from Brussels now by Vivien Pertusseau. He's from the French think tank IFRI. Hello, thank you very much for being with us. Now, do you think that this increase in joint military exercises between Romania and the US is likely to impress Russia?
Probably not. You have to realize that the US and Europe, NATO more specifically, has to do something. But the thing is that their room for maneuver is slightly limited. So they do what they can, but I'm not sure that Russia is particularly impressed. No.
Do you think that it's more about sending a message to Russia than actually preparing for a full-blown conflict?
No, it's certainly not a preparation for full-blown conflict. That's certainly not the goal. I mean, the goal is also not really to send a signal to Russia. The goal is really to reassure allies on the Eastern Front that if something happens, and it's unlikely to happen, but if something happens, NATO, America, and also European allies will be ready to defend their countries.
Now, President Obama recently on a trip to Europe said that freedom isn't free, but perhaps the time has come now for NATO to really make a major and lasting statement in Eastern Europe, don't you think?
It's possible. It's difficult to tell. I mean, President Obama said that, and he's right. Freedom is not free. The question is, how do you exactly, concretely speaking, how do you make that happen? This freedom. And there are several ways. One of them is, of course, to beef up presence in Eastern Europe. This is one thing. The second is to put money in defense, which is something that many countries, especially in Eastern Europe, have not really done for the past 10 years. And the last one is to make a political commitment to each other, that if something happens, then we will come to your help. But in terms of clear statements, the best statement to be done at this stage is really to come and say, we will come to you, we will help you, we will do joint training, and we will put at least forces in the region, not necessarily on the ground, but at least forces in the region.
So you say it's about helping these countries, reassuring them that NATO is there for them. So are Romania and Moldova, the two countries mentioned in our report, right then to be concerned about instability spreading in the region?
Well, there's one thing that you need to realize. I mean, Moldova is a different country because Moldova doesn't belong to NATO. So as much as Moldova wants to integrate Europe, and we want Moldova to integrate Europe, because Moldova doesn't belong to NATO, there is no commitment to Moldova's security. Romania is slightly different because Romania is a NATO country. So obviously there is reason for Romania to be concerned because instability can spread very quickly. But at this stage, this is really to reassure that in case of something happens, NATO is here. But in terms of instability, I mean, we're not there yet.
Okay, so we've been talking about how the US and NATO have been reacting to recent events in Ukraine. But Russia, you could say, took advantage of a fragile leadership there to annex Crimea. But is it really in its interest to see the breakup of the country?
No, certainly not. I mean, Ukraine is a very big country, and the goal for Russia is definitely not to have a failed state at its borders. Even if some people in Russia are already saying that Ukraine is a failed state, we're not there yet again. But it's definitely not in Russia's interest to have Ukraine extremely destabilized, because it could take years and years for Ukraine to be rebuilt. So for Russia, it's a game, a chess game to a certain extent, where, I mean, pushing to the red line, but not going through the red lines.
Now, we've already seen today Russia accusing the authorities in Kiev, the interim authorities, of violating the deal that was struck in Geneva. The US has threatened more sanctions. Is that the answer then? If these agreements aren't working, are sanctions really going to work on Russia?
Well, again, what can we do? I mean, this is a very important question. At this stage, everyone has a bad hand. Russia, because there's not much that Russia can do any longer. I mean, unless it goes into Ukraine, which is very unlikely. For the US, there's also very small gestures or small sanctions that the US can do, and it's the same for Europe. But those are fairly limited, and their impact on Russian actions will be limited. So, again, you have to do something. And you have to bet on the fact that all actors on the table are rational and at some point will come to an agreement. But in the meantime, sanctions are not necessarily the answer, but they're one answer. And at least for now, this is the answer that America and Europe, at least to a large extent, can agree on.
Okay, Vivien Pertusseau, thank you very much indeed for your time. Thanks for joining us from Brussels.